Start streaming. Yes. Okay. And as far as I'm aware, we are live. Hello, hello, everybody. It's good to see you again, both people in chat and people watching on YouTube. Tonight's topic is about free will, if it exists or not. The ramifications for its existence or non-existence morally. How free will is best defined and thought about conceptually, and what any of you guys think is a better theory of consciousness and the phenomena of choice if free will isn't it. So that's what we're going to be talking about. I expect this one to be pretty fun. Not as material and practical as what we usually do on this series, with all the political, wittical stuff. This one's a bit more metaphysical, so that should be fun. Even harder to pin down. So that should create some fun tension. For everybody watching, if you guys want to join discussions like this, please, the link to the Discord is in the description. Hop in so you can participate and discuss these ideas and, more importantly, talk to me. All right. Wow, this is a full room. Cool. So we're going to start.
It's a huge choice.
Yeah, huge room. First things first, can everybody hear me okay? Actually, that's a bad question.
Yes.
Tell me if you can't hear me okay. Okay, great.
People
Bongo.
can't hear you.
Shush, Michaela. We don't need to shush. Bongo. We're going to start with you because you were here first.
Okay.
Yeah. So just give me your basic take on what you think. If you think free will is real, basically, just give me your thoughts on free will in general. Usually, people come down on one side or the other in some way.
Yeah. I think I'm like a hard determinist, or at least a hard determinist plus randomness. So I think free will is an illusion to some degree. At least the will to do otherwise than the free will, libertarian free will that we usually think we have. And whether or not that rules out moral responsibility, I'm sort of agnostic to that. So that's pretty basic. Do you want me to go more into that? Or?
No, that's good. I think at the beginning, this is what we usually do is, and you're new, so you don't know this, but usually at the beginning, at the end, we have everyone go rapid fire with a quick take, and then we open it up, and then at the end, we do it again to see if anyone's changed their mind. So, Andy, how about you?
Yes, I believe in free will.
All right, cool. Bruce?
No, there's no ultimate free will.
No. That is not the answer I expected from you, actually. All right, Daniel?
I don't believe in free will.
Cool. Michaela, I know you don't, but...
I think that free will is a useful illusion that our brains are merciful to construct.
Merciful?
But ultimately, is that an illusion?
Octavian? I think you're new. I haven't seen you here before, so what do you think about free will, my guy? All right, you missed your chance. How about you, Randolph Richardson?
Well, the problem I have is I can't rule it out.
I see.
The thing that gets to me is there's so much that we still don't understand about how reality works. We're just scratching the surface, in my estimation, in quantum physics.
Sure.
There's still plenty to learn. So there could be something that enables this to happen. We haven't been able to rule this out as far as I know. So I'm at an unknown state.
Okay. That's different. That's actually not what I would predicted from you. So very cool, very nice. Simba, real quick.
I think like Randolph, except based off what we do know, it'd be a hard determinist to open for new information.
Sure. And Zemo, last one, and then we'll open it up.
I've gone back and forth between compatibilism and deterministic, straight determinism, hard determinism. So I'm on the fence a little bit.
All right, cool. So I am also kind of on the fence. I'm sympathetic to free will, like very much so, but I don't think that it can really be proven objectively. So I'm kind of on the fence with a lot of you guys, but I want to start with Bruce just because your answer surprised me. Bruce, why do you
He's
think
a
free will?
Calvinist.
Huh? Okay, well, I don't know I didn't know your exact denomination. So tell me why you don't believe free will is for reals.
Oh, well, the problem is the term will itself. There's one ultimate will, God's will, that is predetermined from his ultimate decree. And then there is man's will that is in bondage to sin, that is a secondary cause based in the ultimate decree. So whether or not somebody would call it will would be, I think, a misnomer. It is a secondary cause in the ultimate decree.
Can I ask you a bit of an off-base question real quick?
Okay.
If free will doesn't exist, how does sin exist? Because if you couldn't have made the
That's what I was
choice.
talking about. Secondary cause is inside of the decretive will. See, if sin didn't exist, then there would be no need for Christ acting in time. There's a decretive will that exists for all of time that is pre-known and ordained. But those who act within that, which is what I think Zemo called compatibilism, is that our intentions are evil, God's intentions are good. He uses those intentions for good. And so what our intentions are don't have an impetus on the ultimate will.
Okay. Michaela, you also don't believe in free will. However, I get the sneaking suspicion it's for different reasons. I'd like to hear those reasons, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I would like to get into them, but I have to put this flea medicine on my dog quick, so you can come back to me.
Well, priorities. How about Kapow? What do you think, man? You just got in here. Free will. Maybe. Okay, maybe not.
Kapow, you're muted.
Kapow? Going once.
Kapow, you're muted.
Okay, and now he's gone. Yeah, so I kind of want to open up the floor there. So Bongo, you seem pretty adamant on the determinism stuff, but you also said, did you say you were kind of open to compatibilism? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
So what
I'm
exactly
still
is
open
that?
because, I mean, so you say how or what is it?
What?
What is compatibilism? Well, it's
Exactly.
typically understood as like accepting that if we don't have libertarian free will, we can still be held morally responsible for our actions.
Yeah, this has always been the hurdle for me. I don't get that. I've had people try to explain it to me like a lot, but I don't understand how you can lack agency in your choices and still be morally responsible for your choices. Like, I don't really see that as even remotely possible.
I think for some people it comes down to like, what does it even mean to deserve something, and like what is basic desert versus like some objective standard of desert that we morally construct or socially construct or something.
Yeah, sure, but
so for on compatibilism, so like for Dan Dennett, for example, what he would say in his like conversation with Sam Harris is, Sam Harris is, well, you didn't choose your genes, you didn't choose your parents, you didn't choose the initial state of the universe. So, if you kill somebody, it's just deterministic. And the compatibilist says, well, so what? None of us get to choose that, but we still have to have a society where we lock people up who are going to murder other people, free will or not. And that's all that is.
But
that's all it is.
See, that argument that you just articulated, to me, it's the one I would make, but I would say it hinges on free will. I'd say, so what that all of these circumstances befell you? So what that you had a rough childhood? So what this? So what that? At the end of the day, you still have agency and you should still be held responsible for your actions. Like, I kind of take the opposite tact, that like free will is the thing that allows us to make moral judgments in the face of these unfortunate circumstances that a lot of people are in. So I mean, I'm not really sure. I'm not sure. I'm not really understanding you.
That can hold that position or can argue from that position more strongly.
Yeah, if anyone wants to set my head straight, please. In the meantime, though, Pax just got in, so I want to hear what you think about free will, mate.
I guess I don't believe in it.
Okay, why not? Give us a little more here, man. I got 2 hours to fill. You gotta help me. Okay.
Well, okay. How are we defining free will? The ability, like you could have you were able to have done something else than what you did, or,
I mean,
or that kind of stuff.
that's the thing. That's what I go off of: basic agency, the ability to make different choices. Um, but honestly, one of the questions is exactly how you define free will. Like Bruce defines it a little bit differently as a Calvinist than a hard determinist would, I'd imagine. So even though they agree that it doesn't like exist exactly, so it kind of depends on you. So you can define your terms before you explain them if you
I'll
like.
put it this way. I think we can talk about people making choices, but there's like causes for those choices, and causes beyond a person's control for those choices too.
Well, I mean, I don't think anybody disagrees with that. I guess the question then remains like even like obviously we're all products of our environment to some extent. I guess the question is, are those how large is that extent? Is that extent total or not? Is basically the question. Simba, what do you think?
Well, I was just going to say on the moral accountability issue, I think moral accountability is not so much that the person had an opportunity to make any other choice, but the deterministic idea that if you lock them up, you change the trajectory for everyone else. By knowing that they will be locked up, it changes the effects for everyone.
No, but see, that's the determinist trap because you haven't.
Yeah, absolutely.
You haven't changed their trajectory at all. Their trajectory was always that because you were predetermined to put them in jail, and you just predetermined. You just go up the causal chain all the way to the Big Bang, and we're all just like fleshy marbles thrown.
But the argument of the moral accountability, obviously, I don't find them morally accountable that they were in that situation. But the deterministic view is that what will happen, obviously. But I think it's a benefit to hold people morally accountable.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Let's talk about moral accountability. Like, how do you define the term?
That's the best
what's
part.
Like a responsibility, accountability, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: we can all argue about determinism, and this has been
Before we move on to that,
you don't.
I would like to give my opinion.
Michaela, I would love nothing more than to hear your opinion. I've been looking forward to it all day.
Oh, that's so nice. So, I am a hard determinist. I think that everything has been set in motion, like you guys have been saying, since the Big Bang. There's nothing any of us can do about it. Sometimes it might be psychologically destabilizing to a person to accept the fact or to realize that free will is an illusion. Some people need to feel like they have agency over their lives in order to stay balanced. And I think that it's not exactly necessary that we take that illusion away from people, that we point out to them the fact that their sense of will is nothing at all what it appears to be. I think that some people, we should just, be better left well enough alone. And I also think that losing one's belief in free will has a number of interesting and beneficial sort of side effects.
You're fun. What side effects do you think are beneficial to the acceptance of a lack of agency, I guess?
I can only speak to myself, sure. Anecdotally. But in my experience, losing my belief in free will has made me a more compassionate person, a more gentle person, not just to others, but also to myself.
Yeah.
There needs to be, of course, some balance between holding the thought of I have no free will and also holding the thought of I am accountable for my actions. I think it's a dialectic. Two things can be true at the same time, even if they seem to be contradictory. So yes, it is true.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, we can go on. What's moral accountability? Or what does it mean to be responsible for your actions? That kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we don't have any control over how we feel about things. So in some sense, responsibility for our actions is itself something of an illusion, in that we don't choose to be responsible for our actions. We either find ourselves being responsible for them, or we don't.
You know what might be an interesting... I'm sorry, I thought you were done. I'm a bad person.
No. I was just trailing off. You're good.
Okay, cool. And then I saved you. Great. I'm a great person.
Yeah,
I'm
good
not a
job.
good or bad
Right.
person because I don't have free will, apparently. Regardless, I feel like an interesting experiment with this. There's a couple things that kind of turned me on to the maybe free will is more of a thing type of idea. Is that when we kind of compare ourselves to animals, like basically all I know is that we don't understand consciousness like at all, like at all in humans. Like we know we're different, like to some extent than other animals, but we can't really like pinpoint the
I
exact
think
part
we're
of the
different.
brain, like that explains why, which leaves the door open to me. And also, I forgot who said this. I think it might have been Zemo. I could be wrong. It was someone. Someone was talking. I think it might have been Randolph. Is about the quantum physics stuff because kind of the unassailable cornerstone of hard determinism for a long time has just been: do you believe in cause and effect? Yes or no. And if you say yes to that question, then you have to be a hard determinist, basically. Except
Right.
because you look at quantum physics and now the electron is we can't really predict it that well on the quantum level. It seems that the electron might be a little bit more free than our laws of cause and effect lead us to believe, which doesn't prove anything,
Even that,
but it leaves the
even
door
that,
open a little bit.
even that seeming freedom is itself predetermined.
Okay, but like
But there's like two nuances though, John. Okay, so there's like different interpretations of quantum physics, right?
yeah, well, I'm not a physicist, so please.
I mean, some are deterministic and as consistent with the data as the indeterministic ones. But two, let's say you have one of the indeterministic ones is correct. I mean, how does like indeterminism rescue like the concept of free will?
Yeah.
Well, again, I'm not a physicist, but my basic understanding is that like if you can break the law of cause and effect a little bit, if you can bend it, if you can say, okay, wait, maybe not everything is as cut and dry falling dominoes as we believed it to be, then it's actually possible that humans could have free will. Because as it stands, even though we don't understand consciousness, if you believe in like the iron law of cause and effect, there's like not really an argument for free will anymore because every action we take, every decision we'd make would have to be an effect of some prior cause and therefore could not have been anything else, based the way I think about it. So I think that having a little bit of play in the joints as far as cause and effect goes really opens the door for free will a bit. So that's how I think about it. But if anyone else wants to riff on that,
I
Yeah.
agree with that, except for the fact that even if there's a level of randomness at the quantum level, you are not choosing it. The person is not choosing
Yeah.
which way the atom. So it's still not our will. It's still cause and effect.
no,
Random.
well, I mean, like, yeah, obviously the electron isn't a moral agent. I think that consciousness has to do more with like us personally, but on a more cosmic level, as far as just like predeterminism goes, I think you have to address it on both levels. I think you have to address it on like the psychological human level of like consciousness, and you also have to deal with it on the physics level of just like, falling dominoes because humans seem to be subject to both in a pretty unique way.
Well, we'd have
I
to
think
believe
those
that
two things are
consciousness.
separate.
Yeah, we'd have to believe consciousness didn't follow the laws of physics.
Well, the fact that I think that they might be kind of tied to each other and not completely separate is why I think both are relevant to an extent. I don't know. Dr. Bagel.
See,
All I
like, it's fair
know
to
is
say
that
that.
I just got my ticket for Spider-Man tomorrow, and
Oh.
the universe wills it so. I could have never purchased my ticket for Spider-Man for any other day, and this movie was always going to be made, The Big Bang. And it sounds counterintuitive and weird, and sometimes science is counterintuitive.
Right, but
And
that
I don't think it needs to be. I don't think it needs to be any more complicated than that.
right, but here's the thing. If I came up to you and like I don't know, slapped you in your face, your illusion would go right back up, I imagine, and you'd be mad at me.
I don't know if I would be, because you're assuming that I haven't already been in worse situations.
Well, I mean,
Michaela could say that. Well, I mean, her reaction was caused by prior events, like the slap.
yeah, like I know, I understand how determinism works. No matter what I say, you can say that was predetermined too. It's really fun. It's a fun trick.
Well, and it's
No,
like
no,
it
but the
has
thing
been-
is, like, quantum mechanics does kind of undermine the idea that every event in the universe has a cause for it? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, like now it's like possible that there's like physical events go on that, they're like, random and indeterminate, whatever.
Yeah, there are totally non-deterministic interpretations of quantum mechanics.
Which,
Say that things are, I mean, it could be like random, like rolling a dice. Like we can't see the mechanism that determines the cause and effect at this like deepest level. So we don't know if it's truly deterministic.
which doesn't prove free will per se, but it makes it like
No, not at
more
all.
possible.
Not at all.
It makes it more possible. And honestly, I'm just going for
Does it
possible.
make it more possible? I think that's a question.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, I know. I'm just talking about like my personal worldview. I'm not like
Right.
it's all about me. You understand? At the end of the day, Dr. Bagel, you've been in here for a while. I want to get your take on this whole free will business. We got a nice variety of opinions. I don't think we have any hard free will people in here, actually.
I guess I'm the only one here that is a libertarian.
Hardcore. Well, I mean,
I'm a libertarian in other ways.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I act that way
What
practically.
does that have to do with capitalism, man? Like,
It's a different kind of libertarian.
Stop bringing capitalism into this. That was last show. Get out of here.
So capitalism can deal with libertarianism if you're a liberal in some way. If you believe in the free market and things like that.
Right, but
my view is
Determined
that
market.
Shut up.
What?
Shut up,
The
Zima.
determined market, more like it.
No one.
It's really funny.
You're hilarious.
Actually, boys, I'm gonna hop off. Said my piece, and it's late for me. So
What will we do
I'll talk
without
to you
your
guys
feminine
next
presence
week.
to balance us?
Bye.
I'm not
Nice
politically.
meeting you.
Later. We're gonna devolve here real quick.
The John
so
J.
yeah, what does it mean to be morally responsible or like?
Yeah, that's a great
accountable?
question.
Well, let's
Because
tackle that. But
maybe the term can be defined in a way that's consistent with determinism or whatever.
Well, let's do Bagel's
Yeah.
like spiel first. Just I want to get his quick take, and we'll go to Uncle Rob's quick take, and then we'll dig into the morality stuff because that really is the interesting part, more than like the physics. So Bagel, I just want to finish up real quick where you're at.
All right. So my view is that I believe that one's actions are not determined by anything prior to a decision, including one's character and values and one's feelings and desires. Basically.
Wait.
I'm of the consensus that against Inwagon and people like Robert Kane, that they think that the will has control over our actions. I don't think so.
I'm gonna ask you a quick clarifying question.
Yeah.
You said that one's character and values are not prior
to any decision, correct?
And they don't impact the decision, or that they do.
They so what does prior mean?
Well,
Before?
you said pre-existing character and values. Do those impact people's decisions or not? Because I thought you said that they didn't.
So they're not determined by any prior to a decision, including one's character and values and one's feelings and desires. In short, one's motives and reasons. They're basically it's not reason responsive.
Okay. I got you, man. Uncle Rob, quick 30-second free will spiel.
My dad is a chemical engineer.
I started into the Sam Harris free will book. It's like 72 pages, super small, a ways back, and never finished it. But the notion.
Then get out. No, I'm just kidding.
Strange because you think the low bar, 72 pages is a pretty low bar. But just the notion that that they have, scientifically looked at the brain in such a way that they can see evidence of decision making prior to conscious, awareness, opened up that whole idea in my brain of who is the one picking the next word that I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Then
So this is something that I heard Jordan Peterson talk about this once. And his idea is basically like the closer you get to a decision, the less free will you have. So like maybe in the moment that you're making the decision, you have no free will, but you did have some level of control over the circumstances and values and character that led you to make a decision in that moment, and you can just kind of like abstract that backwards,
But
which
what does
is
that even mean? Because if in every single moment you don't have there's no free will, then every single moment you'd have no free will and you'd never have any free will.
well, like it's the same way you drive a car, right? It's like, look, I'm not going to be able to brake in like the microsecond before I fucking go through an intersection, right? But I can plan ahead to like make a turn instead. And in the moment where I'm planning to make that turn, I couldn't do a hard left because I'm going too fast. I haven't planned for it. So I think a
So
driving
under
metaphor
that
might be nice there.
sorry, what'd you say?
I think the metaphor of driving explains that idea better. I don't know how much I believe it, but I think it's interesting.
Right. Okay.
It kind of circumvents that like brain impulse evidence in a way that doesn't like say
Yeah.
it's like doesn't exist. It just still allows for free will. I just think it's interesting.
Yeah, I don't really understand that because if he says, I mean, does he say? I think I've seen this clip actually. I saw it on like TikTok or something.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Does he say that explicitly say that at like a specific moment you don't have any free will, like at the moment that you're choosing something?
I'm not going to quote him exactly because I don't trust myself to get it right. I just know that he
Yeah, okay.
agrees that basically it's like, it's like Zeno's paradox is like you can get infinitely close to the moment, and just as you get closer to your decision, you have less and less say in it. But, earlier and earlier you had more control. Something like that. We got a lot more people in here. All right, we're talking about free will, JD Oso and Roski, and kind of it's and ideally we're going to talk about its moral ramifications here in a minute. So, JD Oso, you first. I want to hear what you think about free will, if it exists, and the moral ramifications of its existence or non-existence. Because I've heard from a lot of determinists that morality still is like something that exists and is important without free will, which never made sense to me.
Well, to be honest, I'm not that educated on the topic. I've gotten to a point where if I believe in free will, I have to believe in a god that I've invented. Not a god that I've invented, but like it has to come from some place other than from like a logical machine cog type of thing. I don't know. I haven't heard that many arguments. I heard Sam Harris's argument, and it was very convincing to me for why there is no free will. I don't think it's been properly demonstrated, and if it has, I haven't really looked into it that much. I used to believe that there was no free will. I used to be a Calvinist, actually. I used to think that, well, if you know that if we could predict the Big Bang, then surely through like just basic physics, you could be like, okay, well, I know where everything is, so if I just plug in like the next second, I'll see where everything else goes from there, and then I'll plug in the next second and I'll see where everything goes there, and then if I just plug in 1 billion years from now, I'll just know where everything is.
Right.
But the more I learned from physics, the more non-deterministic I realized reality is, and how faulty a cause and effect point of view is when analyzing facts and like distinguishing truth from not. And so now I left that Calvinist point of view a long time ago when I like started college, honestly. And again, I'm kind of in the in between of I haven't really seen a convincing argument for it. I would say I'm more for the there is no free will than for there is, but I really do want there to be free will.
Yeah, I feel that. Roski, real quick. Actually, he can't hear me.
Yeah, no, he can't hear you.
So you said that you couldn't predict it. So I've always thought, like from a determinist worldview, if you just gave you the exact initial conditions of the Big Bang and you just plug it into the most powerful supercomputer of all time, you could predict the history of the universe perfectly. Right. Why don't you think that's true? Why don't you think that's correct?
Well, I was I was introduced to I took quantum mechanics, and like in quantum mechanics they tell you about the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. And it's kind of, it has to do with like the guy that discovered it, Heisenberg, was trying to like improve upon the concept of a microscope and to see how small that thing can go, right? And so we found out that the more you know, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle applies to more than just what I'm about to do, right? It applies to energy and time. It applies to momentum and position. It applies to time and energy. It applies to a lot of other, I think I just said that actually. But basically, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle is, in an equation, is your uncertainty in where something is multiplied by your uncertainty in how fast something is going, is always, no matter what, greater than or equal to this certain number, which is h bar over 2, right? It's just constant. And what that means is the more you, the less one of those uncertainties is, so the more sure you are about how fast something is going or where something is, the less you are, by definition, able to know about either where it is or how fast it's going, depending on which one you know more about. And how that applies to the concept of using a supercomputer to determine like where it is that the universe will be in 1 billion years after the Big Bang, is that you actually don't know where it is that the Big Bang happened, and you don't know exactly, or if you know exactly where it is, you don't know exactly how fast it's going. And if you know exactly how fast it's going, you don't know exactly where it is. And so there's like an ingrained kind of fudge factor within that allows a lack of prediction and allows for things that might happen that you might not have been able to predict within your equations, right? And so the Heisenberg uncertainty principle is often used to argue that the universe is non-deterministic, for example.
Yeah, like, so you can have the same initial conditions and different outcomes, right?
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah, because you have a large uncertainty. Well, not large, but relatively large.
Well,
right? H bar over 2.
hold on. Are you saying
number,
same conditions or same perceived conditions? Because that would be the argument from a determinist.
That's exactly the crux of the issue. That it's the lack of ability in perception, right? The more you try to know about one factor, the less you're able to know about the other. And I mentioned to you the uncertainty principle in terms of position and velocity, but it actually also applies to a more general form of it is energy and time. The more you know about how much energy resides in a certain space, the less you know about when it is that energy resided there. You can Google it. The Wikipedia probably does it more justice than I did, honestly. Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Here, I'll post it right now.
Yeah, please, in the live text, go right ahead. Okay, but I do want.
I think you explained it pretty well.
Zemo, you go ahead, man.
I was just saying, I think he explained it pretty well. Now, yeah, this is where some of my thoughts come in. Like, for example, I think there could be a case made that it's not about whether we have libertarian free will, just we can do whatever we want willy nilly. We can just turn off our desire to be thirsty or we are. We are atop the train that is our wills and desires, right? But I do believe there's an evolutionary, evolved part of the brain that can overcome, sort of our reptilian brain. And it all comes down to degrees, right? It all comes down to the degree of the freedom of choice that we make. So if there is even a 1% or something like this, 5% that we can alter about certain things, then I would consider this some form of free will. Now, the problem that nobody's ever proven free will is just based on the problem. A lot of people define it as the ability to do otherwise. Well, we can't rewind physical matter and time, right? So that's why this is a philosophical argument that'll probably never be solved, honestly. I mean, we've come to certain impasses in philosophy, right? But But yeah, it's also assuming if you want to make the argument, the cause and effect argument, and then just throw up your hands and be done with it and say you can't escape the cause and effect chain, period. I find that kind of boring. Now, other people would say, I mean, if you want to ask somebody the size of a certain atom or electron, and you say it's this mass, and they say, well, that's kind of a boring answer. It doesn't change the fact that it's correct. But on the other hand, if in the cause and effect chain, presumably one of the causes or effects was a choice that we made or had an effect over, right? I think when people say that cause and effect, they kind of rule out the fact that one of the causes or effects could presumably be a choice. But they would always say, where did that choice come from, right?
Right.
But I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, but this deterministic stuff, like the determinism, as you pointed out, it sounds all great, and Laplace's demon sounds, but shit gets weird really quick. Like for example, and I'll shut up. Like if you wanted to map out every atom that was going to go throughout the universe or whatever, you might not account for something, another epiphenomenon coming into existence, like say evolution, right? You might not account for another phenomenon acting upon that matter. So yeah.
Damn, fuck! I just forgot what I was about to say. It's all
I
right.
think there's like okay, I think modern physics, like, okay, with quantum mechanics, there's like the deterministic interpretations and the indeterministic ones. Like, maybe one of the deterministic ones is correct. But I mean, what about from relativity though, and like the B theory of time, like the implications that has on our concepts of cause and effect? Because I think relativity and the B theory of time for sure. At least they do away with the Aristotelian conception of, he called that efficient cause, but that's what most of us mean by cause. But
honestly, I take to Alan Watts for this argument. I really like what he said about it. I think that at times it can be useful to view things as a cause and effect type of thing, as a deterministic point of view. But there's certainly that's certainly not an absolute point of view. There's certainly cases in which sometimes you will lack understanding and possibility of understanding, even if you are like set on stone. But
how do you define cause and effect? Like the way Aristotle defined it was like cause is something that makes a change occur. Like, right. Well, I mean, he had the four causes.
For sure. Well, honestly, it's really built into our culture that everything is like a cause and effect. Again, to take from Alan Watts, people say when you do something, they'll ask you what hit you, right? Like if it was a billiard ball type of interpretation. Like if you did something, it's because something made you do it, or if something happened, something caused it. It's not that things happen out of nowhere, but and although it might seem very weird to you, in quantum mechanics, it's very normal for things to occur with no reason, right? Like for example, if you get like a cube of space and you take out all the air and all the molecules and you make a perfect vacuum, which by the way is impossible, you would find that perfect vacuum still has weight, and I think they call it quantum weight, and that weight is given by particles that are constantly coming in and out of existence, right? Like they'll lend their energy by literally appearing out of nowhere, and then
empty space isn't real, according to physics.
For sure, and again, Alan Watts says his interpretation of if you are hell bent on seeing the world as a cause and effect, you'll think that what came first, the tail of the cat or the head of the cat? But, I mean,
but what do you mean by cause? Right? What do you mean by effect, though?
What do you mean by cause and effect? Well, what do you mean, like cause and effect? Like, I think it's
Well, I mean, the way, like I said before, the way Aristotle defined it was like, okay, a cause is something that make some kind of change happen, right? And the change would be the
That has an
effect,
effect, yeah.
right?
Sure. Yeah,
But
yeah.
but the thing is, right, with relativity, given that relativity seems to support like the B theory of time. The B theory of time entails that change is illusory, right? You know, like all like points in time are like equally real. That kind of stuff.
From their own perspective,
So,
right? Well, I guess I don't know how to join those two things together. But like again, to point like this thing that I was telling you about, like if you're looking at a snake, which side goes first, the left or the right? Well, neither side goes first. The left goes when the right goes. It's like if you try to separate the point of view of like what caused this, if you're always trying to find a cause to every effect, sometimes you'll find that there are some effects that have no causes, that are just one thing, and it's one continuous thing that is the effect, and the effect is the cause, just as it is the effect. And I guess that's kind of a weird thing to say, or at least I wouldn't have got myself if I heard that from my words. So I wouldn't expect you to understand me there. I don't know how to explain it in a better way, honestly. Maybe I'll find it.
I think that made sense.
Yeah, for sure. Alan Watts was talking about this, or at least when I heard him talk about this, was he has this perspective that a lot of people will blame the past for their present. He has this idea of or it's like a little anecdote of he'll ask like somebody, oh, what has gone wrong? Why are you so broken? And the person will answer, well, I was raised wrong, and they really didn't bring me up right, and it's kind of my parents' fault. And then they'll ask the parents, and the parents will say, well, we were kind of raised wrong, and it was kind of the fault of our parents, and it goes all the way back to Adam and Eve. And if you go to the story, he like quotes it beautifully, where God asked Adam, did you eat the fruit of the tree of which I've told thee thou shalt not eat? And he instantly passes the book along. He's like, well, I did eat, but this woman compelled me. And then he asks, and then
Most accurate
God
part
will
of the
ask
Bible.
Eve, did you eat? Yeah, it's Genesis. And then God will ask Eve, well, did you eat of the fruit of the tree that I asked thee to not eat? Or something like that. And she'll say, well, she at least has a better answer, right? She'll say, yes, but the snake compelled me. And then God will, out of the corner of his eye, look at the snake, and the snake will just smile. And I think that's so perfect, like the answer is, it's not before, it's not something that caused its existence begins now, and you're doing it and you won't admit it, because it's such a huge thing to admit. But again, that's to a different point almost than the free will thing.
So yeah,
well, actually,
to some degree, to try and tie this back. Sorry, finish your thought.
No, I did. Thank you.
Okay, I was gonna say to try and tie this back to the sort of the original conversation. So if we're thinking about this B theory of time, right, with relativity or whatever, and we try and tie that back. So would we say that in that theory, then cause and effect is more of a sort of a psychological thing of us like thinking we live in this 3-dimensional space and not like within 4-dimensional space time, right?
I think it's a fixation with this Newtonian point of view of like the billiard ball, right? Like a billiard ball moved because it was hit by a cue, right? But when you really start looking at the atoms, they'll start moving and nothing will move them. It's kind of crazy. Or at least as far as we're able to understand, I won't actually say that something will move them, because I'm not sure that momentum can appear from nowhere. But I do know that energy can appear from nowhere. That from nowhere a positron will appear, and then instantly an antipositron or an electron, right, will appear, and they'll just instantly clash and come in and out of existence. That happens like literally everywhere all the time. Which to our brains might not make sense, but is what reality is built upon,
Yeah. So if that was true, that reality wasn't, there was no sort of like fundamental cause and effect relationship like that, I guess that would to some degree rule out determinism, right? As the
look,
fundamental reality. But
at the end of the day, quantum mechanics ends up being interpretations and different ways of looking at the answer. But the answer is pretty clear. However, the point of view of determinism is still, I don't think it's answered. I think it's still up in the air. I personally subscribe to a non-deterministic quantum point of view.
Oh,
I don't think.
Let's
yeah, something perfect.
Yeah,
go for it.
I was just gonna say that, like, what you're saying, I completely agree with. The quantum world is wacky and all this stuff, but the reason we as humans, at least cause and effect, makes sense to us is because of our frame of reference. So, in quantum mechanics, they might not act like billiard balls, but on a billiard table that's in our frame of reference, if you have the center of mass, billiard balls do act like billiard balls, and they absolutely do follow a cause and effect pattern. But that's not disagreeing with your point. It's just pointing to our frame of reference, right? So, but anyways, secondly, I just want to raise the example that, like, I think about this when I think about free will, and if you take a drug addict, right? And I think Jordan Peterson brought this up in one of his talks on it, but, like, they are more determined, right? Like when I was addicted to, like, when I was an alcoholic, like, my actions towards consuming alcohol were pretty determined, right? So I at least I feel, and this could be part of the illusion, but I feel like I have a hell of a lot more choices at my disposal now. Things I can do, and etc.
You're not so strongly compelled to drink alcohol.
Right. So what do you? Yeah, exactly. So what do y'all think of that?
Can you say that again?
I'm saying that.
Why are you not determined?
One at a time. Let Zemo go.
Oh,
sorry.
I was saying that when I was drinking alcohol, I was more determined because I was much more likely. You could predict my behavior much more easily.
Yeah.
I was going to go get drunk, right? But now I might go to the park. I might take a walk. So what I'm saying is, I feel I have gained some free will, right?
Well, where did that come from, though?
I believe
Can I put a point in here?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, hold on.
That,
Okay. Yeah.
Just really quick, I was going to say that to some degree, like, even if you accept that we don't have the free will we think we have, right, this ability to do otherwise, we still see the future, or we sort of act as if the future is open to us, right? Like, we don't go around, like, knowing exactly what's going to happen. We're not Laplace's demon, right? We don't go around being able to predict the singular path, if determinism is true in this way, of what's going to happen. We think about the future as if it is open to us, genuinely open, and, like, different things could happen. And so in that sense, him being an alcoholic, he it made much more sense to him that his path towards alcohol was going to happen, as opposed to now he feels like that there's other things that are open in his mind than just drinking alcohol or behaving with alcohol.
So this actually kind of raises.
My point is, I had a lot less free will. Like, I could say I don't want to drink right now, but I would end up doing it, and I'd be drunk, and I'd say, "God damn it!"
So
I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this raises an interesting question.
When did that end? When did that end? Right? Because
I don't think I don't think it was at a point. I could talk. Well, I mean, I don't know the exact date. I don't know, 5 years ago or so. I could tell you the day I stopped drinking. That wasn't the day I stopped craving it, right? But so.
Well, hold on. If I was right, you told me that your behavior was easier to predict, right? So say I was a betting man, right? And I was to bet today you're 100%, like, I'm willing to bet you're gonna drink again, right? If I would have just kept making that bet day after day after day, at some point I would have been wrong, right? I would have,
right? Yeah.
Right? Because at some point you stop drinking, right?
Right.
But my question is, how could I, as a betting person, have been able to predict that? When did your free will begin?
Right. Yeah. It's a good question.
So this actually raises an interesting question of the not exactly if free will exists, but if, like, free will exists for all intensive purposes. And you connect it to the alcoholism, but you can also connect it to animals. Like, if you stimulate a rat in a certain way, you kind of know what it's gonna do. And you can do that for humans
Right.
to an extent, but like humans, like predicting their behavior is pretty difficult. Like we surprise ourselves like all the goddamn time. And like if like
Every day.
it's like the hypothetical of like the supercomputer that could predict everything. Like that's like cute and everything, but like I'm kind of stealing this idea, but like some hypotheticals and like thought experiments can just be rejected because they're like impossible. So to human
I
beings,
would
free
respond
will
to that.
exists because it's
So-
impossible for us to actually like even if we could prove determinism, we couldn't use it. Right? Like we would still have to like
that
act
might
as
be,
if.
Might be true.
And like here's the thing, if
by
the
the way,
entire
I Googled
planet
it
is
and,
acting as if something is true, and if it is like working, that's like pretty goddamn close to the truth, however we're defining it. So I think that raises an interesting point there.
I
Well,
wanted
are you-
to kind of respond to that just really quickly,
Yeah.
the animal thing. Just to say that, humans can, humans have this sort of computer-like brain, right? And we can predict the way like certain animals, like really simplistic animals, like say ants or something. I don't know. We could predict how an ant would behave pretty well if we understood. Well, I mean, can we predict ants very well? I don't know.
No, we cannot. Actually,
I guess we
my
can't
understanding is
Huh.
we can't even predict tapeworms' behavior actually when
Really?
But we can
simulate.
manipulate.
Yeah,
We can
We can-
manipulate ants, but that's
yeah,
different,
we could
right?
definitely look. For example, if you give a rat cocaine, I'm pretty sure it's 100% chance that the rat will drink the water with cocaine over the water without cocaine. I think it has never been demonstrated that the rat will go back to water. So to a certain degree, like there's things we can predict, but if you mean like actually mathematically predict the fucking neurons causing the rat to like go for the water with cocaine, we cannot do that, right? We can barely simulate like the tapeworms neuron.
Let's take the like the software interpretation of predict. So like we can predict like generally what their behavior is, right?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah,
by the way.
for sure.
Ants have a much more simplistic brain than we do. Yeah, I had a double take on that one. I was like, wait, can we predict ants? I don't know. But
somewhat,
so,
yeah.
So if you look at anyway, so if we think about predicting in terms of like the softer version, where we can basically understand what their behavior is generally. They don't do anything that like amazes us to the way that other human actions tend to surprise us or amaze us, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
If we think the similarities between all the animals are strong enough, this strong theory of evolution, then at least in theory, some kind of much more intelligent being than humans could predict the behavior of humans if we were if we actually did follow that same
Well, like for example, I don't know if we can predict, for example, the behavior of dogs or like dolphins, for example. I think we're too far even from that. Maybe like you said, ants. But I think actually, I don't know what causes it to be harder to predict. I would have guessed the number of neurons, but I don't know if
like
that's
some kind of
directly.
complexity or something.
Yeah. I wonder how that's measured.
Jolly B, you just hopped in. We're talking about free will, obviously. Right now, we're talking about like whether like the difference between like free will existing for all intents and purposes versus free will actually existing. It's basically we're talking about free will. I'd love to get your quick take on it and whether you believe in it and maybe some of the moral ramifications because I kind of want to get into those at some point.
Yeah.
We'll get there in good time. I have faith.
I don't like that. For sure. No, yeah. Give us your point. Go first.
Jolly lid. Going once, going twice. Okay, that's fine.
For sure. No, yeah, I was just gonna say, like even if I think you can't prove free will, I don't think it would be resourceful or like a good strategy. Societal wise speaking, I think, to like, for example, do like this Sam Harris thing where he's like, well, I don't even know if you can blame a murderer for murdering because they didn't choose anything, right? It kind of happened to them more than they chose it, and so it's better if we like rehabilitate them or whatever.
I know,
right?
but
Like
this is like
sure,
the
maybe that's
problem.
objectively truth, but I don't know if that's like beneficial to the continuum of our society type of thing.
Yeah, and it's like you say that until it's.
I think that ends up being a different argument. I think it ends up being a different argument.
It's a moral argument.
Yeah, I felt Sam's argument on free will compelling, and then he kind of a little bit lost me with the. I mean, I understand the whole have empathy for people and have empathy for yourself, etc. But that's kind of the compatibilist where I hit the wall, where it's like, okay, you still
that's
have
exactly
to have
where I hit the wall. 100%.
Yeah.
I'm so with you on that. Yeah.
And under that paradigm, and also under that paradigm, I could argue, well, if you look at the brain as a predictive system, and we could predict that it's broken, it's like a computer totaled beyond repair. You could make the same ethical argument. It's not in our interest to try to rehabilitate it, right?
Well, we can't try to do anything, right, under that determinist model.
Well, we do try. I mean, we still think that the future is open, so there's effort, mental effort goes into certain things and not into other things, even if we don't have ultimate control.
But the use of the use of the word "we" implies agents, right?
The word "we"?
We. You said we try, and it's like not really. We don't try. We are caused.
Oh.
You understand, if you actually believe in hardcore determinism, even words that imply any sort of agency, if you say I went to the store, that implies that I chose to do, you see what I mean? Even language is gonna have to shift.
I don't know about that. I don't know about. I think you can believe in individual
This was actually Brett Weinstein's response to Sam Harris. He says, well, if it's all deterministic, I don't even know what this means. And Sam's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I don't know what this means. This conversation. You know what I'm saying? It just, it's a paradigm shift.
It's like the ramifications of actually believing it are incredible. Well, that's not true.
I think you can make a very good argument, a very convincing argument, maybe even a factual argument through quantum mechanics that the world is not deterministic. If I show you some certain experiments in quantum mechanics, you will question your own prediction to the point that
you would say it's random, right?
I don't know if random is the right word, but deterministic definitely not.
Okay, so
maybe random. Maybe random's the right word. Maybe it is.
But even under the random, but also this is the thing. Even under the random paradigm, but even under the random, there's not even that much argumentation for free will, right? Because you would just say
no. That's actually no. I don't actually think that because the world is not deterministic, that has anything to speak about free will. Again, because of this Heisenberg uncertainty principle that I had to say, right? I think within that error, there's the possibility for who the fuck knows what, maybe even free will.
What do you think of the word undeterministic instead of random?
I like that much better.
It's just fun to say.
Right, because we really get into the math of it. There's different types of randoms.
Yep.
What you might think is random is actually what to your human brain seems like different, but is actually not really that different. It's on purpose different, which ends up not being different. Sometimes the same over and over is random. Even
is random. It's like how they had problems creating a random number generator. It's like they would see the pattern in the random number generator and say this thing's fucking broken. But
I remember iTunes had a big problem for a while because
the shuffle.
Because the shuffle they would actually genuinely put random songs according. Well, again, there's different types of randoms, but people would complain a lot of these songs sound similar. You're grouping the depressed songs with the happy song, or the depressed songs with the depressed songs and the happy songs with the happy songs. And people would interpret a pattern where there really wasn't one because of, again, what they want random to mean rather than what it actually does.
I don't know if they actually purport to be random, but I know my Spotify playlist with over 600 songs plays the same 20 or 30-ish songs way more than the rest of them.
Maybe you're noticing, or maybe you skip some more
Like again, it's pretty hard. But I read an article that iTunes made random feel more random by on purpose, like degrouping like songs that are similar to each other. So actually, to you, it probably does seem more random now.
One of the problems with a lot of pseudo random number generators is that they very often are biased when you run it long enough. So it's better to use a secure random algorithm that's well tested because they have better distribution. That's a lot more even. But even then, one could argue that's not quite random because you should be able to randomly detect bias in a random sequence.
For sure, it ends up being a really weird math problem.
But imagine any music shuffle system would have to not be random because at some point you don't want to listen to the same song 3 times in a row or have it be possible.
Exactly. Well, that's what they did. That's exactly what they did. They'll like not group similar songs. They'll make sure that the same song doesn't play over again, even though that might be more random.
One thing I found is a very inexpensive way to generate fairly seemingly random numbers is to take a video camera, close it up in a paint can, and just read the darkness and make numbers from that.
For sure. Well, I mean that randomness comes from like the photoreceptors in the camera, I'm assuming, which I wonder what the bias might be. Maybe it's like, I don't know. That's a whole different. I think one of the best random like method generators is like to take like a strontium like 190 isotope and then just measure how often it radiates like a beta particle, and that's pretty like actual random.
Wow.
I remember some YouTube video. It was one of the like Tom Scott, one of those type of YouTube videos.
I don't know.
And they actually found patterns in the static background radiation that you get in like an animal detector.
Cool.
And they were like set frequencies from like the sun and stuff, like magnetic fields.
For sure. No, everything is influencing everything else. So it's really hard to get like an isolated system that is actually unbiased.
I guess you could have something in the algorithm that switches between pseudo-random number generator algorithms randomly. That would just prolong it.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it would just prolong it. It depends how random you need your numbers, honestly.
For video game stuff, a secure random number generator can do very well.
For sure.
Okay, so
in most. Go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, I just want to tie this back because I do love our little forays into tangent land, but I do, because I think we've been skirting around one of the meaty issues, and maybe this doesn't go anywhere because it's like impossible, like, you know, this whole conversation kind of is. But
whose free choice was that?
It's always impossible.
Yeah, but it's okay. Apparently. Is the moral ramifications of this sort of stuff, and we've touched on it a bit, but like, so most determinists that I've talked to, who believe in this stuff and think that like it's all predetermined. If I ask them like if they'd hold the murderer of their daughter responsible, like they'd say yes, and they say it's not contradictory. But that feels contradictory. Now, you can make the argument that it's like, look, at some point the illusion just takes over because we're all human and we're not perfect, but that doesn't make determinism less true. But
excuse me, guys. Were we talking about capitalism to begin with? Was that in the?
I think it was free will.
We're talking about free will, my guy. Yeah, we're talking about free will, and we're talking about the moral implications.
Capitalism from that. I don't know where you got capitalism from that.
When I went to the live discussion invite thing that Travis sent me, it was about capitalism, I believe.
You're probably
that might have been a while ago, honestly.
You're probably thinking free market, not free will.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the live hangouts.
Right now in the announcements.
Oh, is it wrong? Oh, shoot! Did I not fix it?
Oh, well, maybe.
That's my fault. I'm sorry.
Then, honestly.
No.
Capitalism is a blemish in my opinion, though. Like that's a pretty clear-cut issue in my opinion.
What is it? Sorry, I missed out. So I was.
Wait, hold on. We're on free will. We're on free will.
We are on free will.
We could go back to free will. There's enough dates for capitalism, honestly. But just touch on that. I think the facts speak for themselves, and like you can see which countries are more successful. And clearly, in my opinion, it is the ones that are taking a more
mixed economies win.
Well, there's no pure capitalist system on the
You're
planet.
a fucking commie, honestly. You're commie downtown.
I'm not a communist at all. Don't you ever compare me with stuff.
All right.
Actually, Dan, you've been in here for a while. I want to hear your take on free will.
Goodness.
Hold on.
Woo!
Admin's taking the
Not even
mic
gonna
real
be
quick.
honest.
Hold on.
Thank you. Sorry, that's not done. That's a socialist.
Look, I think it depends on the type of population you have at the end of the day. Like if you have a really rural, like undeveloped population, maybe at the largest like top level in state, it's beneficial to take a more socialist point of view. But I don't know. Let's not talk about capitalism. Capitalism is so boring to me.
Wait a second, that's an interesting distinction I've never heard because I've always heard it work the other way.
Really?
That cities, it's in their bias to form socialist-style governments so that they can exploit resources from the rural areas.
Well, okay. If you really want a genuine opinion, I think the free market and like the invisible hand always wins. Even in like the cases, but I end up looking at experiments and like actual things that might have happened, and you cannot deny the success of China and like bringing up like 500 million people from absolute anguish poverty into like a somewhat livable
less
life,
poverty.
you know?
Yeah.
Sure, but that was
Well, I mean,
for a lot of blood and a lot of
to
destroyed infrastructure.
Yeah, sure, but like, look, you got to pay with it somehow, and like you know, like blood, like they'll take that payment. It ends up being.
Is economic conversation boring though? Like, I mean, isn't that more practical than the possibility of discussing free will versus determinism?
Well, to be fair, none of this matters. Is the thing you have to understand.
Well, I'm just here for free will. I'm gonna dip out if we're talking about capitalism, honestly.
No, yeah. Let's talk about free will. I'm more
Right.
into the free will.
Well, I'm gonna segue this. Are you guys ready? Here's the thing. China didn't pull anybody out of poverty, nor did they kill anybody, because China isn't responsible for anything. The Big Bang is, and that's it. But this does lead into some issues because, like, the way I see it, and
that's a good segue, actually.
I know. It's not bad. It's like the classic determinist trap. It's just no matter what you say, you can just say, but that was caused by something else, and you know.
Exactly.
But I'm gonna say something, and I want it to be challenged because I want to talk about this. If one actually believes in determinism, then one could not hold, like, I'm just going to use extreme examples because it gets the point across. Like, one could not hold Mao responsible for the Great Leap Forward, or Hitler responsible for the Holocaust, or Stalin responsible for the Holodomor. You couldn't say that they did something wrong, because to do that would to be impute agency.
They respond to compatibilists.
Sure. But you could also say that no one really did anything well, right? Like,
hang on,
Dan,
can you let Dan come in?
Yeah,
said much.
I haven't heard from him. I want to hear what he's saying, because this is my understanding. I'd like to have it challenged a bit.
How would respond to compatibilists? Or moral realists who will say things like, yeah, okay, so we can hold a determinist position but still realize that the way we deal with blame and responsibility isn't one of because you meant to get punished for it, rather because you're the agent causing it. You're the fuck up. You're where the mistake happened to you. You're still responsible for it as an agent. The whole agent's responsible whether or not they were intentionally doing something. We hold people responsible all the time for no intent. That has nothing to do with moral responsibility.
Is the domino responsible for falling when it was hit by the domino behind it?
It's irrelevant for when we're creating societies.
No, I agree to that, but
we're not making a God metaphysical judgment of moral righteousness. We're not playing this metaphysics game. We're playing a basic game.
So you're holding a self-contradictory position.
Exactly.
That conception of morality is like a much weaker one than the idea of some like strong, realist, objective morality that some people believe in. You know.
Right, but this sounds to me like basically saying like throwing your hands up in the air, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just trying to get an understanding of throwing your hands up in the air and saying like, look, we can't prove like that this idea of moral agency or responsibility is like accurate or even fair, but it's the best thing to do in order of constructing societies to pretend like it's true. And while we acknowledge it's probably not, we're going to pretend like it is, and everybody's just going to pretend and it's going to be fine.
Well, there's no pretending.
Well, now you're playing. Wait one second, Joe.
That's my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You're falling in this. For me, this is just a not moving past Descartes' Archimedean lever. This is saying, oh, because I can't ground this, because I can't find a ground truth for this statement, for this proposition, then I'm putting my hands up in the air and making stuff up.
Is that not faith?
So much of our things that we consider as true and as real are things that we cannot go all the way back down and justify axiomatically. We just assume them in many different regards.
In fact,
science, tons of psychology. There's no way you would go ahead and say that those things aren't true.
So
American pragmatism is entirely built off of creating philosophical concepts, scientific bases off of shaky foundations, because they realized that they could not beat Descartes. We cannot do what Descartes wants for everything. It is impossible, especially when dealing with empiricism.
So, Jolly, go ahead, man. Jolly.
I was going to say, exactly. I mean, Dana literally stole the words out of my mouth. I mean, there's this concept of instrumentalism. I think it was A.J. Ayer that was a philosophy of science person, and he basically said that the concept of truth is irrelevant to science. It's about instrumentalism because of the Cartesian problem. So you have the idea that we haven't, because the impracticality of solipsism that results in the first meditation of Descartes, you have to assume, and he does himself, Descartes does himself, he goes to his third meditation, which is, let's just assume that what we're saying is true because there's no point just sitting here doubting ad infinitum. Let's just assume, for the sake of practicality, that this is true, and blah 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 blah. So it's all instrumental.
This raises a new question, though.
It's not necessarily practical. It's not necessarily practical. If it seems, if something seems likely, and there's nothing beneath that, you just go with what seems likely.
Well, which is the instrumentalism. It has to have utility, practicality.
Right.
So this raises a bit of a new question.
At a certain point, you got to close the book and walk your dog. No, I really agree with that point of view.
No, and I agree
This is also the
too.
point of view that
I would recommend just reading William James and Charles Peirce. I think American pragmatism
William James
is the response for Descartes' problem. Descartes makes a serious problem that wasn't solved until pragmatism, right? You look at Kant trying to, the empiricist and the rationalist, and him trying to put them all together. Then pragmatism comes on and goes, actually, change this. Just we're working. We have to learn to build strong cities on sand. That was their whole thing, because Descartes, right, wanted to raise his foundations and rebuild them up like strong foundations. Right. That was his whole metaphor. And they were like, well, we can't do that here. We have no way to empirically do this. Right. But yet we still got to build houses.
So I guess, so this raises a bit of a new question for me, and I'm going to try to use your metaphor. So I like the pragmatism stuff.
Well, hold on. Can I ask one thing? Dan and Jolly, are y'all determinists or?
I'm a compatibilist, perhaps.
Yeah, I think they're compatibilists or something.
I mean, I would search for the answer in materialism, right? But for me, there's a certain point where I just can't. My determinism kind of hits a wall of reductionism. At that point, I just give up and go, I don't know what the cause of this. And maybe if I think about it from a phenomenological stance, or I think about it from a psychological stance, I just have to go, maybe there isn't. Because that just works for me in the moment. But ideally, in an idealist sense, I would be a determinist. Yeah. But I can't do it. It doesn't mean anything to me.
So it's all just presuppositional. Either claim is presuppositional.
Right. I just want to say how he got to that question, and I'm sure he's been stewing it longer, but we were talking about determinism, and then someone said, well, I did this, and he's like, what are you talking about? What does I mean in this context? If you truly are taking determinism to heart.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, there's only one I
think But I think you got it, Jolly and Dan, as well. At the end of the day, we don't base our moral and societal foundations on scientific truth, right?
Yeah, and the scientific truth themselves aren't even grounded to the sufficient.
Aren't grounded, metaphysically as well.
So this raises,
especially psychology.
Some can inform it, but we can't,
This raises a question that I'd like to pose. So, it seems to me that my understanding is that, basically at a certain point we can't know things, but we say that they're true enough that we leave it alone and we just assume it for the time being because there's nothing else we can do.
Correct.
So if we're agreeing that we can do that, why wouldn't you just assume that free will is real for the exact same reason? Because every functional society.
That's the point of the.
No, I know, but you're arguing that that free will doesn't exist, but we should act as if it does. So why not just skip the first step and just say it does?
If I think as the world exists independent of my mind, yeah, I'm a determinist, which means that if I have if there's a problem in someone's brain or there's an issue, I will go for a physical or biomechanical pathway, whatever you want to look at. But when it comes to my life and when it comes to speaking to other people, psychologically, our concept of free will is really very, very much necessary for telling stories, much necessary for organizing our life. I cannot feel as though I don't have free will. Every waking moment, it feels to me like I'm choosing and deciding my actions. Whether that's true or not, that's irrelevant to that lens by which I view the world. And I have to pull these levers that I have accessible to me. I have to press these buttons and steer these wheels. And one of these levers involves me telling a story to myself about the fact that I have free will and telling you that you have it and telling you that you can make choices, just like you can talk to an alcoholic and tell them you can have choices. It ends up feeling that way. And in that sense, it's real. But in a noumenal, deterministic, purely physical physics based, I don't think so. But that's what being a compatibilist is understanding that both of these can be true at once.
And the other thing I was going to sort of say as well is that if we're claiming, again, I think the question is free will real or is determinism real? Like it's real in a quasi sense, in the sense that, as much as any other physics theory is real rather than purely instrumental, it is real. So you can say determinism is instrumental and free will is, meta instrument. Or, the other way around. Like the determinism is meta instrumental.
Are you saying they're equivalent in terms of their likelihood, because everything is just pragmatic? Is that, I don't know, I'm confused.
We're not talking about likelihood. I'm not saying that anything I'm not saying it is more or less real in a scientific measurable way. I'm simply talking about free will being is real in the same way that the color red is real. Nowhere in nature does the essence of redness exist. But to you, in your vision, when you look at my little bubble talk up, you see that green. Can you explain that green itself, that experience of greenness, only exists in your head, and that is real?
No, I agree. The experience of greenness is real, but that is totally different. You'd have to define for me what you mean when you say I experienced free will in every moment. Your experience is entirely consistent with a deterministic universe. The way
that's why I'm a compatibilist. For the universe, I think it's deterministic, and I think that most of my actions are determined too.
So what's the difference between compatibilism and determinism then?
Did you decide to click on the join button?
But I know
most likely the reason why I'm on this chat is because I had a shitty day and I'm not tired and I can't go to sleep. So I saw a message popped up which I couldn't ignore because of whatever fucking associations I've made, and then I clicked on this chat. But to me, it feels like I chose it.
Don, that's exactly what I mean.
Hold up, is Bongo deterministic?
Yeah, I'm determinate, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So what's the difference between that and determinist?
Yeah, and Bongo determinist.
Don, you're the best, dude. I love you, man.
Sorry if I sound like an asshole. I just am.
No, you're good.
Nah, not at all, man.
Hey, I have a question for the group, if you guys are willing.
Please.
Yeah. Hell yeah, let's go, Roski.
What is the purpose of philosophy?
I have a great answer to this. Actually, that was
to kill time. The purple in between the circles.
Damn straight. I love you so much, Zemo.
So what? To say what? What did you say?
The purple in between the circles.
So what does that mean?
You're gonna have to elaborate.
Guys, notepad out. Draw again.
So I'm not gonna pull up paint, but this is something that one of my philosophy professors showed us, and I was so impressed when they showed this to me. Yeah, I'll pull up paint because it's always better with paint.
Hell yeah.
I'm excited to see this work of art.
Oh, and I was gonna just ask you a question after this.
Who? Ask you a question?
Dan.
Oh yeah.
Okay, let me share my screen.
What's the difference between a compatibilist and a determinist then, if they both agree on the physics stuff, but most determinists act as if they have free will too? You'd be hard pressed to find a determinist who acts out his beliefs exactly. So What's really the
Wait,
difference,
what do you
would
mean?
you say? Well, like, if you're a most hardcore determinists don't, like, act as if nothing they do matters. Like, most people, like, everybody acts as if they have free will, I would say,
Well,
even
things
if,
Not
matter in the
everybody.
sense. I mean, it depends what you mean by matter. I mean, things matter in the sense
Yeah,
that, like,
yeah.
I care about them, but I don't think there's some, like, grand meaning beyond, like, creatures that experience and have desires.
right, I'm just saying, what would be the practical difference between somebody who considers themselves a determinist and someone who just considers
I
themselves
could
a
answer that, I reckon. I think the
compatibilist?
difference may be that people who subscribe to the whole deterministic worldview, that the universe is deterministic, may not attribute the instrumental nature of it and ascribe it to truth. Because then you're just looking at a sliding scale of instrumentalism, right? You're looking at our belief that the universe is deterministic is actually just more instrumental, I guess more or less instrumental. Like, this is getting to meta now. So meta versus practical, ground reality practical. So, like it's the same way we deal with, say, atoms, for example. We know that atoms exist and everything's composed of atoms. We can't see them. We actually see, 3D, like 3D, 3D reality. Yeah, 3D reality. Hence, we say that, hey, 3D reality is more real to our everyday, like lifestyle perspective, whereas, the subatomic reality is just something that happens in the background. And same with this. But the case here is, if you look at maybe a compatibilist, and at least that's the way I look at it as a compatibilist, is I know that both perspectives are instrumental and neither of them are actually real. To the sense, or at least you can't ground them in reality, as we discussed before. So it's just different layers of instrumentality. So
What do you mean you can't ground them in reality? What do you even mean by that?
We can ground them rationally, so you can construct pure syllogism.
Just because you mean because you can't have axioms that are like 100%. You can be 100% confident in it and justified in that confidence.
Well, not rationally would be axioms, and empirically is measure it. So, like, empirically we can't measure it.
Yeah.
Rationally we can't ground it. So we're kind of left with, like, these things that we kind of just have to use as instruments.
Dan, what the fuck am I looking at?
But if something seems very likely, and then you want to use it, you just use it. It seems likely, so you still believe that it's true.
But that's the point. Like, from that,
that's the science works too.
But this is instrumental rather than reality. So this is what I was saying, is that, again, like, if we were talking about instrumentalism, so likelihood is it's not a claim of likelihood, because you look at a three-dimensional reality that we live in every day versus the subatomic reality, which is more likely. They're both equally from our perspective.
It sounds to me that you're not picking up that we're not necessarily talking. You're only ascribing to what true means. So wherever you're conceiving of truth and what truth is, you're saying, was it more likely or less likely? I'm accepting the fact that truth itself isn't a binary, but rather there's different modes of it, and different things can be true depending on their application and their aim. So, for example, if I'm going to measure the length of a table, is it true that it's 6 feet, or is it true that it's, like, 2.7 meters? Which one is more true?
They're both equally true, because they mean the same thing ultimately.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what Dan's getting to is the application of it.
Yeah.
Right. It's the instrumentality, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't agree with that conception. They're two different conceptions of truth, and I think they should be thought of as two different conceptions of truth.
Yeah, and we're
saying. Dan, can you explain your masterpiece real quick to us?
Yeah. Can you real quick just explain this thing? Yeah.
We were in this class. And
don't shortchange yourself.
Starts us with define philosophy. And we're all kind of sitting there, a bunch of undergrads, like, I don't know, how the fuck can I do this? So we all pull it out. He's like, you can use your phone. So we look it up. Some kids have the definitions, like, that doesn't extend philosophy. Whatever, we go on. And then he tells us a joke, or this story. And he says, when you're a philosopher, and you go to a mathematics conference, every mathematician, the second you opens your mouth, knows right away that you're not a mathematician. Because when you're a philosopher and you go to a psychology conference, every psychologist knows right away that you're not a psychologist. But the media have no idea The press look at you, they hear what you have to say, and they think you're one of the guys. They think you're one of the mathematicians or one of the psychologists. He draws us on the board, has math, English, politics, physics, psychology, sociology, and he asks us where would the philosophy fall. So Zima already gave the answer, but Ahmed's answer wasn't true, right? So some of us were like, oh, it exists over here. This would be philosophy. He's like, wrong. We're like, well, maybe it's connected to politics. Oh, it's mathematics. And maybe it's here. Maybe it's like mathematics and English because we do logic with words. He goes, nope, that's wrong. And he explains to us that philosophy is that which communicates between all of these things. It is the purple space. This is philosophy. Doing philosophy means existing in the spaces in between where there aren't applied fields. He says if we think philosophy as a universe where energy is created by itself, before there was math, there was just philosophy. Before there was politics, it was just philosophy. Before there was sociology, it was just philosophy. Science itself was called physical philosophy. It wasn't until these fields established them as their own microcosms where they no longer needed to think outside of their own scope to grow. That's when they stopped becoming philosophy. So for him, his definition of philosophy is everything that's in between pre-existing magisteria.
That is beautiful.
I like that definition for sure. Yeah, that's a good definition, honestly.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Oh, man. That
Very
is
fun.
awesome, man.
Thank you.
That is awesome because it means that every one of those domains has... So, okay, where I'm coming from, first off, is that the reason why we philosophize is to figure out what we want to value. And we value each of one of these domains here. They all serve a function. They all have a purpose behind them. But I heard a different definition of it, and it's that to figure out what to value.
To figure out what to value. To figure out where meaning lies. Something like that.
There's some people who don't care about that, who just like to do like logical fallacies and argumentative and coding. And
That's what they value.
One of my professors just said philosophy is just thinking about anything a lot.
That also works.
That's a good one too.
Simple, it's funny. I like explanations that are super simple or ones that are told through a story. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Love a narrative. A narrative will get me every time, even if it's wrong.
Meta narrative.
That's cool.
All right.
Yeah. Do it to me, yeah.
No, honestly, I'll take that anecdote in my head because I clearly someone else knew about it, so I'm gonna use that answer later.
All right. Well, I'm officially more confused than when I started, so I think that means that things went well.
Philosophy is all about.
As per usual, my time is extremely limited because of reasons that I don't want to put on the internet. But I'm running out of my time here, guys, and I feel like we've reached a natural spot. So unless anybody has anything else they want to say right now, we can go through and see if anybody's mind has been changed, and we can end there.
I don't think anyone's mind has been changed.
Man.
Look, just real quick point. I think if, and this is I guess personal or subjective, I think anybody who really is a determinist, if you truly look at the Heisenberg uncertainty principle and how it is that it was derived, you will find a non-deterministic point of view in the realization of that.
So
if
you think I view that as the same thing as saying because God. That sounds like you're giving a question.
Well, how do you
look? I say that
we can argue this later.
Let him talk. Let him talk.
Okay.
Close the show.
Yeah,
let him talk.
Sorry,
if you guys want to respond to him, you can do it when it's your turn.
Yeah, respond to him.
Hey, just finish up real quick, Jidioso.
Or not.
Okay.
Or not. Again, I sorry to make it such a blanket answer and be like, God said so or whatever. I could take the time to explain to you how it was explained to me, but again, I heard someone that had to go. It was more of a last point type of thing.
No, it's good. It's all right. You guys can battle it out in the tab after this, and I want you to because it's fun. It's just I personally just can't keep going. So Dan.
No, for sure, I get you.
I have the sneaking suspicion you stand where you stood from the beginning, but if you want to give, if you have anything burning you want to finish with, please. Stage is yours.
I ran too much. I talk so much. I love everyone. That's it.
Okay, cool. I like that message.
I love that, bro.
How do you define love though? And does love really exist if none of us have agency? Okay, I'm
very
just kidding.
simple. Very simple.
I'm just kidding.
If you're not a sociopath, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Bongo.
Honestly, I think my best definition is, and I got this from an Uber driver, but I guess it's not from him, right? It's a very religious point of view. It's to recognize yourself, and it's the golden rule, right? Like treat others how you wish to be treated, right? Once you realize they're a piece of you, in that person you're talking to, that's it. That's love right there.
Jeez,
That
took the words out of my mouth. That's like almost exactly what
We're getting really wholesome over here. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I love you guys, bro.
That's crazy. That is crazy, Juan.
For sure. No, great minds think alike, you know.
Yeah. All right, Andy. Do you have any burning?
Rarely differ.
Oh, okay.
Well, fuck then.
Yeah.
What the fuck does that mean?
Andy, if you have any burning things about free will or just something wholesome you want to say, apparently, floor is yours.
Well, I still believe in free will, but of course prefer that it exists, so I have bias. But I would also like to say that I love each and every one of you.
Aww.
Yes.
Aww. Damn, bro.
All right, we set a precedent now. Thank you. Okay, Jalib, or however, you're gonna have to explain your profile picture, by the way.
Oh Jesus! Again.
I've never heard it, so go ahead. No one's ever told me.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
Come on, Charlie. Give me once at least.
Okay. Well. Okay. So the picture in the profile is me, but basically I've done an abortion debate with counter views to the norm. So they said, you can't talk with a male profile pic. So I basically took the picture, checked it through FaceApp, and checked it on there. Went back on there and said, now's my turn. Left it on.
That's so good.
That's amazing.
I also have this girl. It's called Daniela, and I have like a girl picture. And anytime I go to like servers that either want me to be trans or they try to use me as like a cis, right, whatever it is, I just put that on and come in as Daniela, and it's easy.
That's kind of sad, but also hilarious.
It's hilarious. It's so good. It's so good.
That's awesome.
Love those people.
All right, let's talk about what we're talking about. Jalib, free will. Has your mind been changed? Have your horizons been expanded? Where are you at?
That's a better question.
Jalib?
Me?
Yeah, you.
You.
Jalib?
Me again?
Yeah,
you.
I just want your 10-second take on free will to close it out if you have anything burning. Yeah. That's what we're really talking about.
I'm just a capitalist. That's there is to it. There's both theories are instrumental. One's more practical to be used. There's no such thing as determinism, objectively true, as in the Kantian sense, Spinozan sense. But and neither is free will. But they're both instrumental. But one seems to be more instrumental than another. Another one is more sort of physiologically instrumental, kind of like the whole. Subatomic realm exists and it's just as real, but it's not practical for us to worry about outside the physics classroom, or some kind of tech environment where you're trying to actually do something with that mathematics and physics. But one's more practical, which is the 3D reality, Newtonian physics, laws of gravity, laws of nature, blah 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 blah. That's more practical, the same way as free will. It's both. It's me, they're equally real. In a sense, one just has a different domain. Yep.
Sure.
That's my 10 seconds.
I like it. Lexicon.
What?
If you have any burning take you want to finish with on free will, just
No, I'm good.
All right. Restraint, Roski.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sorry, I was checked out.
you know what we're doing, right? Like, do you need me to prompt
You got any last take?
Oh, yeah. I think people confuse the ideas behind constraints and conditions and events. I think people that believe in the power behind constraints tend to be deterministic. People that look at reality holistically tend to believe in free will. I think it just depends on how specific you're getting, really.
Okay.
That's it.
And then Zemo.
Good, man.
You got a last take, Zemo?
Yeah.
I'm good.
Okay.
Cool.
So
Well,
I'll close out.
I got one.
Oh, did you not go yet?
I heard a new word here. No, I mean, I don't know if I went. I heard a new word though. What was this thing you guys were calling each other or yourselves? Compatibilists.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I haven't heard of that one before. I'm gonna read into that right now after I leave this. But I feel like I'm probably a compatibilist from hearing you guys' description of it.
You are. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting that.
Yeah,
I'm getting that vibe too. Maybe a soft compatibilist because, like you were talking about with the quantum stuff, and just given the fact that we do not understand consciousness like almost at all, I think the door is open. I think the door is open. Yeah. So soft compatibilist. So that's something I moved on. I thought I believed in free will because I just thought like the pragmatic truth is like takes precedence over like the messy physics stuff. But it seems that there's a word for that, and I'm kind of around there. It's just like, you know, when every human who's ever lived feels and acts as if something is true, and if systems only succeed if some level of moral agency is assumed in the social system, like, that's so, like, it's like Dan said, like, it's practically true. Practically in the terms of, like, practically, like, materially, and practically as in being, like, very close. So,
all right, for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, I think everyone gets it. I'm sorry. For anybody listening, please, thank you for watching. We don't have many platforms for free and fair discussion, especially not on the internet. So thank you for supporting this. If you want to join the Discord, it's in the description. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Comment what you think. And thank you, all you wonderful people, for talking with me. It was wonderful. I enjoyed it. So thanks.
Thumbs up from me, bro. Yeah. All right.
Continue the convo down in the tab if you please. If not, I'm signing off. Thank you all.